I've been thinking, I want you to be happier. I want you to be happier. Some days things just take way too much of my energy. I look up and the whole room's spinning. You take my cares away. I can so overcomplicate. People tell me.
Hi beautiful creatives, thank you guys for joining me on another beautiful tutorial and very easy one. Today we are going to be creating this dress, and then we're going to be drafting out the top pattern first. So I have two pattern paper here with me, and this is for the back pattern and this is for the front pattern. Now on the back pattern I have my 1.5 inch zip allowance already. I rule the line, I indicate with the line. So what I'm going to do is fold that part in the zip allowance, and then I'm going to place my back pattern and my front pattern together. I'll pin this together so I can mark the measurements together. So if you have your fabric instead of your pattern, you can go ahead and do this, or you can individually draft them. So it is up to you. Now the length I am using is 18 inches. And 18 inches because I added 1 inch joining allowance, because I'll be joining the top to the skirt piece. So that's why I have 18 inches here. Now drafting the pattern, I'll go ahead and divide my shoulder by 2. So this is a basic bodice. I'm doing this because of the beginners, so you know what we're doing. Now from that point, I'll go down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. And then I'll connect the neckline to the shoulder slope. So in case you're new to sewing, just follow the steps and you'll be good to go. Now I'll go ahead and divide my round armhole by 2, and then I'll mark this down from the slope. Now I'll make sure that what is on the armhole point is the same thing I have on the shoulder, so I'll confirm that, and then I'll rule a straight line. Now on that armhole line, I'm just going to rule an horizontal line, because that is where I'll be creating the curve for the armhole. So the next thing is the bust point. So place your tape from your shoulder to your bust point, to your nipple point, that is your bust point, and then you mark that point down on your pattern paper or your fabric. Now the next point I will be marking is the waist point. So go ahead and place the tape from your shoulder to your waist point, and then mark whatever number you get down on your pattern or your fabric. Now I'll go ahead and divide my round bust by 4. So you take the tape around your bust, divide that number by 4, and you mark this down on your pattern or your fabric. So I'll connect the line to the armhole line because I want to create the curve on the armhole. For me to be able to do that, I'll find the middle point on the armhole. Middle point, that's divide the number you get there by 2, and then I'll mark the middle point. From the middle point, I'll go in by ½ an inch. Now the ½ an inch is for me to be able to create the front armhole. So I'll connect the ½ an inch to the bust line, and then I'll connect this to the slope. You know, the line meeting the bust, then I'll connect it to the slope. To create my back armhole, I'm just going to connect the middle points to the line that the bust meets the armhole, and as you can see, there's B for back and there is F for front. Now moving on, I'll go ahead and divide my round waist by 4, and then I'll mark the same number I marked on the round waist. I'll mark this on my length, and I'll just go ahead and connect all lines together, all points. I'll connect the bust point to the waist and then the waist to the length. And I'll add ½ an inch for allowance. So this allowance I'm adding now, I'm not going to add any allowance on the fabric because I already did that on the pattern. Next thing is the neck measurement. I'll mark the neck width 3.5 inches. That's the neck width. Because I have the back pattern here too, I'll mark the neck depth for the back, which is 1 inch. I'll connect this to the neck width, and then here you have it, the back neckline. Now I'll go ahead and connect that for the front neckline, and how deep the front neckline is going to be 6.5. So you can go ahead and make yours deeper. I think at this point I was supposed to make my neckline for the front deeper, but then I used 6.5 inches. So go ahead and make yours deeper. I think you will get a better result. Now connect the 6.5 to the neck width like this. And you guys, this is the front neckline. So I feel like if you want to get a perfect fit, because I really didn't like that my neck wasn't that deep, so I think you should go down by 7 or 7.5 to get a perfect neckline for the front. So now I'm just going to cut out the part I don't need on this pattern, and then I will go ahead and cut out the back neck, and then I'll detach the back piece and the front piece. But before I do that, I'm just going to indicate the point, that's the bust point on the pattern because of the zip. Now the bust point, I'm just going to mark 1 inch, and then on the length 1 inch, and then I'll connect this. This is just because of the zip. I'm just adjusting the zip. I'll connect the line to the 1.5 on the shoulder, and you guys, that is it for the zip. So now I'm done with the back. It's time for me to cut out the front neckline, and this is the front. I'll go ahead and cut out the armhole too on the front armhole. So now to create the cutout, I'm just going to go up by 1.5 inches. So now I just indicated, in case you don't want it that wide, you can take 1 inch, but then if you want it a little bit wide, take 1.5. so I use 1.5. Now on the length, I placed the tape from the center front, and I went in by 3.5 inches. Now I'm just going to connect that 3.5 inches to the 1.5 inches I marked above the waist. So I hope you guys get what I'm saying.
When the morning comes, when we see what we become, in the cold light of day, we're a flame in the wind, not the fire that we've begun.
Okay, so now creating the skirt pattern, I'm just going to mark 1.5 inch for the zip allowance from the top of the to the base. Now I have a full video that explains how to draft a skirt pattern and how to also make the skirts, so I would advise you go watch that. But if you carefully watch this video, you're still going to get the same result, because this is the same way you create a skirt pattern, a very easy way. So what I just did now is mark my hip points.
I want you to be happier. Lately, I've been thinking, I want you to be happier.
This is the waistline, and the skirt length is going to be 17 inches because I'll be attaching the flay to the base of the skirt. I'll be attaching this flay. So this is the length. Now on the waist, I'm just going to divide my round waist by 4, and then I'll go ahead and mark this down on the pattern paper. And then I'll divide my round hip by 4. I'll go ahead and mark this on the pattern paper. Now connect the waistline to the hip line, and I'll go ahead and mark this, what I have on the hip line. I'll mark the same thing on the length, and then I'll connect the hip line to the length, and that is it for your skirt pattern. Very easy. So what we'll just do now is go ahead and adjust the hip, and then cut out pattern. We're also going to adjust the zip. Now I'm just going to mark 1/2 inch on the pattern for the allowance, just as I did on the top. So taking this allowance means I'm not going to be adding allowance on the skirts, on the fabric, when I'm cutting on the fabric.
When the morning comes, when we we see what we become. In the cold light of day, we're a flame in the wind, not the fire that we've begun. Every art.
Now what I'll do is mark 1 inch on the waist, and then 5 inches below the hip I'm just going to mark 1 inch straight down to the length, and then I'll connect all points together. So this is the adjustment I do on the zip. That's for my skirt. This is the adjustment I take, and there you have it. We're done with the skirt pattern. So when I'm cutting the front, I'll fold in the zip allowance, and when I'm cutting the back, I'll bring out the zip allowance, and that is it.
Lately, I've been thinking, I want you to be.
So these are the piece patterns we're going to be working with. Now cutting on the fabric, I'll go ahead and fold my fabric into 2. And this is crepe for those who always ask. This is crepe. So I'll go ahead and place my pattern. I'm starting with the top front. I'll just go ahead and place the pattern and pin this down before I cut so it doesn't move. Now you can still go ahead and leave allowance if you're not very sure of the allowance you left. You can still leave allowance on the fabric while you cut, or if you feel like okay, the allowance you left on the pattern is going to be enough, just go ahead and skip leaving allowance and just cut. Now another thing I need you to know, if you're going to use the same fabric to turn this over to the wrong side, that's on that cutout side, I will advise you leave enough allowance. But if you're going to use a bias like me, because I'm going to use a bias, I'll just advise you cut it straight up. Don't leave any allowance, because I'm going to be using bias to do the finishing on that part. Now I'm just going to bring out the zip allowance to cut out the back piece for the skirts. And like I said, leave allowance if you're not sure of the allowance you left on the pattern. Go ahead and leave allowance on the fabric. But if you're very sure, just keep leaving allowance and cut. Now remember, the back piece is going to be splitted into 2 because of the zip, so go ahead and do that. So this is the back piece and it's splitted into 2. So these are the piece I'm going to be working with. I have the top, I have the skirt. This is the front piece of the skirt. I also have the 2 back piece of the skirt here, and then I have the back piece of the top.
Yeah, I want you to be happier.
The finishing of the back for the top, the back piece of the top, I'm going to be using bias to finish the neckline. So I have video that shows you how to use bias on your neckline, how to sew bias on your neckline, so just go check that out. And now on the cut out side, we have on the waist parts, that's on the top, I'm going to be using bias to finish that. I already mentioned that. And then for the front neckline and for the skirts, I'm going to be using facing. So now this is the front piece of the skirts. I'm just going to fold fabric into 2, and then I'll place the skirt like this. I'll make sure I have 4 inches worth of fabric on the facing, and then I'll trace out the waists. So the waist points and 4 inches down is what I'm cutting facing for. Now this is the fabric for the facing. I'm just going to go ahead and hem this by 1/2 inch on the base. And then for the front neckline, I'm going to go ahead and fold my fabric into 2, and then place my top piece like this.
You can't stop me loving myself.
And then I'll trace out the neckline like this. Once I'm done, I'm just going to take off the fabric, and then I'll mark 3 inches on this part. So I'm just going to mark 3 inches. So that's the length of this facing. So now I have that done, I'm just going to cut out the parts I'm using for my facing, and then I'll go hem by 1/2 inch on the base or round the base. So now I'm done doing that. I'm just going to go ahead and place this on the front neckline, and then I'll sew by 1/4 inch like this. And now this is done. I'm just going to iron this out to make it flat before I use my hemming gum to hold down the facing to the neckline so it doesn't move.
I can so overcomplicate. People tell me to medicate. Then only for a minute I wanna change my mind.
So now joining, now I have my front neckline done. I have the cutout done. What I'll do is bring in the front skirt piece. I'll bring in the front skirt piece, and then I'll place the top of the front like this on the front skirts, and then I'll sew in the facing. Like I just place the front of the top between the skirts facing and the skirts, and then I'll go sew. And also while doing that, I'll go ahead and sew in the back piece together. That's the top back piece. I'll sew this together by 1 inch. I'm just going to sew it, and I'm using a loose stitch because I'm going to rip this out to attach my zip. So I'll do the same thing on the back skirt piece. I'm just going to go ahead and sew in 1 inch.
We see what we become in the cold light of day. We're a flame in the wind, not the fire that we.
So now that I'm done joining the front top and the front skirts together, I'm just going to use the hemming gum to hold down the facing together, hold the facing down to the skirt together, and this is what you have.
You can call me an idol, but I keep on breathing. I know what I am.
A clean finish. So this is something I really love the outcome. I love that it looks so clean. Now we're going to go ahead and make the ruche. So this is the fabric I cut out for the skirt parts, and this fabric is almost as long as the skirt, but then 2 inches shorter, and this is for the top too. So I'll just go ahead and place it where it's going to sit, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew in 3 stitches. So I'm sewing in 3 lines to create channels for my straps. And also I'll do the same thing for the skirt. I'm just going to place the fabric I created already on it, the side I want it to sit. So I'm just going to sew in 3 lines to create channel for the straps. Now sewing in 3 lines is going to create 2 channels for your straps. So just go ahead and do that, and then place the fabric where you want your ruche to be. So this is the result. As you can see, I have a clean finish. I have a clean finish in the front, and also on the wrong side I have a clean finish. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass the strap through this channel I created. And this is what you do when you're done. You just go ahead and tie the knots together, and this is it. So go ahead and repeat the same step for the skirt parts, and pass your straps, and there you have your ruche. Should look like this. So now I have the back piece joined. This is the back piece of the dress. I'll just go ahead and place the front piece of the dress like this, and then I'll go sew together. I'll sew the shoulder by 1/2 inch, and then the sides too by 1/2 inch. And now I'll just go ahead and attach my zip to this. So once I'm done attaching the zip, the next thing for me to do is I'll go ahead and place the tape around the base to find out how much fabric I need for the flay. Go ahead and fold my fabric into 2, and then fold it into 2 again, making it 4 layers of fabric. And then I'll make sure I have a closed edge like this. I'll place my tape on the closed edge and mark 6 inches round. So this is just me trying to make the flay for the base of the dress, and I have like a very clear tutorial on how to make flay, so just go check that out. It's really easy to make, you guys. So don't be scared if you're new to sewing. These are all easy if you follow the steps. So now that I'm done with that, I'm just going to place my tape and mark how long I want the flay to be, and that will be 5 inches. So I'll go ahead and cut this out, and now I have the flay for the base of the dress. I'll just go ahead and attach the flay to the base of the dress, and then we are done with that part. We just have the last part to go, and which is the sleeves. And once we're done with the sleeves, we're done with these steps. Now this is the dress. I'll just place my tape on the armhole and find out how much fabric I need. And you guys, I said I was going to upload a video on how I made the sleeves pattern, and I haven't done that, but forgive me, the video will be coming next. So now my pattern is here. I'm just going to go ahead and spread the fabric I'll be using. I have 2 fabrics here, the right side facing right side for the both sleeves. I'm just going to place my pattern like this, and then I'll place heavy objects, that's my books, so it doesn't move while I cut. And before I cut, I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the sleeves to make it bigger at the elbow point, because I want to use an elastic for this. I don't want it to be tight. I want to use an elastic, so I have the gathers at the base of the sleeve. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out the part I don't need. And this is the sleeves. I'll go sew in by 1/2 inch. But before I do that, I just want to show you guys, I'll place the tape to find out how much I need to sew this in by, and it's 1/2 inch. So I'm sewing in by 1/2 inch. And then on the base of the sleeves, I'm just going to create channel for the elastic.
I look up and the whole room's spinning. You take my cares away. I can
So go ahead and create a channel that is enough for the elastic you're using. And if you want to make a longer sleeves, all you have to do is make sure that the fabric you're using is as long as from your shoulder to your wrist point, and then you go ahead and create channel for elastic, and there you have it. You have a long sleeves. So now I'm just going to go ahead and attach the sleeves to the dress, and you guys, so this is how I was able to create this dress or recreate this dress. And you guys, thank you very much for making me do this. I really love the outcome. I love how the dress fits my body. Like, you guys, just keep sending in your requests, because I'm loving the challenge. And thank you guys for watching. You guys are really amazing. I'll be seeing you guys on my next video. Bye.
You can't stop me.